Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to 21 Hunting and Fishing, a completely veteran-owned, no-frills podcast, show, whatever you want to call it, where we talk anything about hunting and fishing. And today we're going to talk about moose hunting in Maine and mostly how to apply. I find myself explaining how to apply for a moose hunting permit in Maine to several folks several times a year. And so I thought it'd be cool to record this podcast or whatever you want to call it in order to show everyone, because it can get a bit complicated, and when you first log into the website it is kind of overwhelming on what you got to do. If you're looking for pictures of big trophy bulls, this is not the podcast you want to be listening to right now. This is essentially just how to apply. I'm not sure there's a really good place out there that really tells you how to apply for a moose hunting permit in Maine, so I thought I would make it myself. So the first thing you need to know is that the moose hunting season is broken up into 4 different weeks, and the first one is always a September bull. This is where you could actually call in a rutting bull. Pretty exciting. You can probably YouTube a whole bunch of folks calling in a bull during this time. And yeah, it's always the first season that comes in. It's that last full week in September. And then this year is a couple week break, and then there's another October bull. So probably second most popular. At this point, generally the bulls are done or past the height of their rut. You could probably still call one in maybe, but you'll still see them out there for sure. You can see bulls anytime. It's just a matter of how responsive they're going to be to getting called in by what they think is a cow in heat. Then October, that third week is cow only, and then there's our antlerless only in the following week. So there's some technical definitions between antlerless and cow, and so you could, in theory, I suppose, shoot a male moose that doesn't have antlers if it's really young, and I think that's okay, but check the rules on that. And also, I highly recommend hunting with a guide no matter what, because the guides can keep you out of trouble, keep you from getting lost, but they will make sure that you're shooting at the right cow, bull, or antlerless, what have you. I believe the definition is something it used to be that if the antler nubs were 3 inches or less, then it was considered antlerless, but don't quote me on that. Definitely check the rule book or talk to the guide before you apply. So the lottery is really hard to get selected. To be honest with you, there's guys that have been applying for a moose permit their entire life, who've never got one. I've been lucky enough to get selected as a non-resident, which is really rare. I was trying to find the success rates and the odds of getting pulled on their website when I was putting this together, but I couldn't find it. But I do remember reading it. I think they send a letter out to all the people that get selected, and it tells you all the odds and the actual success rates. Later in the show, I'll show you the numbers of the moose that were harvested at, per different areas, but I know they do keep track of the actual success rate. And if you don't get drawn, you can still go as long as you're the sub-permittee on someone else's permit, but we'll get to that in a couple slides. The drawing is always a Saturday in June. I think it's usually one of those first Saturdays in June. They always make a spectacle of it. They've done it at L.O. Beans. People show up. They'll do like a moose calling competition, And I know during COVID, when I got selected, they were doing it virtually. So you can, I imagine that they are going to do it live every year from here on out with all the different ways to do that. But if you can't join live, they publish the results pretty quickly, and they publish it in the Portland Press Herald. They publish it on the website, and usually you'll have folks calling you if they recognize your name and stuff. It's a big deal to get selected. Is the point. You can apply for multiple weeks and multiple WMDs, but you're only going to get selected for 1 week and one WMD. So you're not going to get like selected for like a bull permit on that September hunt and then a cow permit on the October hunt. It doesn't work that way. Once you're picked, you can't get picked again for 3 years. You can continue to buy chances during that 3-year hiatus where you can't apply to increase your chances. I think applying is $15 whether you're resident or non-resident, and you're much more likely to get selected if you're a resident. I think about 80% of the permits go to residents. Some of the big outfits can just buy the bull permits. I think that's something the state does to help keep business going to those guys and help keep those outfits in business, but it's pretty pricey if you're just going to go out and buy a bull permit. You're talking multiple thousands of dollars, I think. So a little bit more about the success rates. The success rate for the 2024 Moose Lottery was about a little less than 6%, with almost 73,000 people vying for just over 4,000 permits. So again, yeah, guys have tried their entire life to get selected, but hey, it's possible. I got selected in front of one of the most difficult ways to, as a non-resident. Of the 4,000 permits, only about 8% go to non-residents. So I guess it's even less than I thought. Applying for the late season cow permit will increase your chances of getting selected. All right, so once you decide what you want to hunt for as far as cow or bull, and therefore the dates that you are going to go, you need to figure out what wildlife management district you are going to hunt in. Not every WND is open to moose hunting. Most of the moose hunt occurs in the northern parts of the state because that's where it's cooler and there's just more moose. But there are moose that exist everywhere in the state. We've seen them as far south as Portland, and I know my brother's seen one where we grew up, and you can see them all along the coast. But the hunting really only occurs in the, I'd say, northern half of the state, roughly. There's a map later I'll show you where the WNDs that have moose hunting occur. And you can Google it. The website looks like this, and they have the Wildlife Management District, the map, pretty basic, a PDF map, and then a description that describes the borders and everything else that you should be aware of as far as landmarks and things like that for the WMD. But again, highly recommend getting a guide for that type of thing. Then they know where all the sort of landmarks are for the borders. The guides typically specialize in certain areas. Some of them have access to camps in certain areas, and so they guide in only certain WMDs. So that's something to be aware of as well. So you can see the WMD number 1 is in the northwestern part of the state, and it goes 1, 2, 3 across, just like this, and all the way down to the higher number wildlife management district areas are along the coast in the southern part of the state. So yeah, I'd say most of the moose hunting occurs roughly north of my cursor here. Over here you have the Rangeley Lakes region area. It can be popular. Up here is Jackman I think is right here on the way to Quebec. And then I've only been hunting in 1 and 2, I think. I can't remember. Yeah, I think the first year we went was in 1. The second year we went was in 2. And the camp was basically along the road, so you had access to 2 or 5. So the WMD PDF maps look like this, really basic. You're gonna want to have a GPS or a hard copy map, or probably both when you get out there. And the WMDs are essentially bordered by some landmark. So here at WMD2, the southern border is the American Realty Road, which is a big dirt road, very well maintained. To the west, it's bordered by the Allagash River. North, the St. Francis River in Canada. And then to the east, it is bordered by Route 11. So pretty obvious road marks, but you can still find yourself happening across the border and not realizing it and getting into a WMD that your permit's not good for. So it's definitely going to be the reason why you want a guide as well. And you can see that most of these areas are just coded by some sort of code, T12R11 WELS. That's this area. There aren't towns up here. There's a few towns, like you have Ashland over here, you have Allagash over here, but for the most part, they don't bother naming all this kind of unlivable type area. There's no reason to. And then the third thing is the description of the WMD. So if you read this paragraph here, it looks like the PDF, but at the end of the day, you're going to want to have GPS and a hard copy gazetteer if you're out there. And people that spend a lot of time in the North Maine woods, they also have CB radios like the truckers have. Cell service is pretty much non-existent. You can, for better or for worse, you can plan on that. Only certain little spots will have cell service. I know at one point on the Realty Road, there's someone hammered a Verizon wireless sign to a tree because for some reason next to that tree on that road you can get cell service. So definitely do not plan on having regular contact with civilization if you don't have some sort of satellite phone or something like that. A lot of the cabins up there they may or may not have electricity, depending, but again, you go in there to moose hunt. I think that's all part of the experience. You're not going to a 5-star resort unless you go to one of the big outfits, and you'll definitely end up paying for that. All right, so as previously mentioned, the Maine Moose hunt is very well regulated. They keep tons of statistics on it because it is the marquee hunt, I suppose, in Maine. And they keep track of the harvest numbers via each WMD. And you can just Google this underlined text here. It'll bring you to a website. And then this map gives you an idea of the regions where the moose hunting occurs. So you take a look. So it takes you to this website right here. You can click on visit the dashboard, and it's a bit more interactive. And you can look at all the bear and deer, and they stopped the turkey harvest reports a few years ago for some reason. I think there's just so many of them now. Maybe they're not keeping that close to tabs anymore. I don't really know. But you go to this website, you scroll down, and there is a moose harvest report by WMD. And if you take a look here in the upper left. So you can see essentially the WMDs that allow for moose hunting, and it's color coded by WMD and what week. And so you can see the different weeks that we have talked about. These are the 2023 dates because this is 2024 data. And I'm sorry, this is 2023 data. The map for 2024 harvest report should be coming out soon. You can see 2023's came out in January of 2024. So it looks like they're not super scientific about it. They just kind of, it's hard to believe that there aren't moose killed in these townships here, but I don't know. It just looks kind of too nicely laid out, but it gives you an idea. So as I was mentioned before, like the very, very northern part of the state is where most of the moose hunting is, most success, I would say, is going to take place. You can also click on a age report, and so the seal number that you get when you check your moose, your last name, first name, and then the age. So I've seen as low as 0.5, so someone shooting something that was born that spring. Scrolling through here, the oldest I saw was 14 and a half years old. The moose I shot most recently was 4.5 years old, and it was great tasting. So here's that map. When you click on that dashboard icon that I was showing you earlier, it gives you totals for whatever you want to see. So moose harvest by town, and you can click on the squares. This doesn't show the WMDs. No, it does. So the blue line are the WMDs, I think. Yeah. So that gives you an idea. You can see so in T9, R9 wells, and again, that stands for something, but that's this little purple square right here, all the way back to 2009. It's like 2021, 2022 was a good year. 2023, numbers down, but I mean, who knows? A lot of things could be causing that. Gives you an idea of black bear, turkey, white-tailed deer, and moose as well. And this is the entire state. So your permit prices, the Maine Moose permit for non-residents, almost $600. They really stick it to the non-residents. Plus you have to have your non-resident hunting license, $114. For the residents, it's obviously much cheaper. I thought I put it down, but it's not much at all. Guides, the prices of guides will vary drastically depending on whether you're bull hunting, it's going to be more expensive, or if you're cow hunting. Cow hunting can be a bit of driving around, looking for them. And then the bull hunting is a little bit more active. You could actually call them in. During the drawing, as I was mentioned before, they make quite the spectacle of it. They have like a moose calling competition and all that stuff. Your meat processors, your guides will probably know a meat processor or have a hookup or something along that effect, or make the reservation for you if you ask. But talk to your guide, figure out the meat processor situation. It's the cost of the meat processor is going to be outside, in addition to the cost of your guide. But we processed the first moose that we shot, and it took 3 guys like 2.5 days just cutting it up and packaging it, cutting up and packaging it. The second moose we shot, it was a little bit smaller, but we were time crunch anyway. We already had the guide had the meat processor lined up. We dropped the moose off and then picked it up later. All right, so I've mentioned the terms before, sub-permittee and alternate sub-permittee. When you apply for the lottery for the permit, you put down a sub-permittee's name. That sub-permittee can shoot the moose as long as you were there. They're being defined somehow. You have to be so close or what have you. You can check the rules on that. You can't be completely separated to, I guess, prevent one guy from going one way and another guy going the other way and covering more ground. But again, there's probably some technicalities there that just to be aware of. So you can hunt with this sub-permittee, but that sub-permittee person cannot hunt without you. So that's really important. And if you're someone's sub-permittee and for some reason they can't go, then you're out of luck. You can't go either. And the sub-permittee doesn't impact that 3-year hiatus that you have to go on, or whatever you want to call it. You can shoot a moose every year as someone's sub-permittee. You can write down an alternate sub-permittee if, in case your sub-permittee can't go. If for whatever reason you have to change from your sub-permittee to your alternate sub-permittee, there's a deadline to make this change. And when you get selected, they send a letter explaining all this stuff. So it's not necessarily something you need to memorize, but it is something to be aware of when you are applying. Generally, your permit's not transferable to another person, but can be in special cases. I think they define it as like a close family member. Like if you wanted to transfer it to your father or your son or daughter or something like that, that is probably more doable than if you just want to transfer it to some Joe Schmo or probably even a friend. They probably do that so you're not selling your permit. You can't and try to make money off it or something to that effect. But again, if you get selected, they'll send you a letter in the mail outlining a lot of these nuances. And there's even websites where you can go on there and you can swap permits. So that's different than just transferring one permit one way. But if there's reasons why people need to swap, they get selected for a week, that, now all of a sudden they have some sort of event that they can't get out of, like a wedding or something to that effect, and you can get on there and transfer permits around. I see Facebook groups you can look at, and people will be talking about it on that, but obviously you have to inform the state, and there's probably more paperwork to do. Well, there would be more paperwork to do once you decide to swap a permit. So swapping that's different than just transferring. Swapping, you're getting that guy's permit, that guy's getting your permit, and transferring is when you just give your permit to somebody else. You might be able to transfer your permit to your sub-permittee pretty easily. You might want to check that out. But things to be aware of. Again, you'll see these terms when you're applying, so you know ahead of time what that means now. So ticks are becoming a real problem in Maine, and essentially the number one enemy to moose, especially young moose. They developed this hunt as a management study. I do not know much about it. I've heard that it got crowded. It's probably I'm sure the reason why people apply would be to increase their chances. It's only in one zone, I guess WMD4, and it's managed, but essentially they're trying to study if they reduce the moose population in a certain area, how does that impact the ticks? Because the ticks aren't dying off during the winters like they used to. All right, so that's about it. One thing we didn't really talk about is some more of the logistics, but if you need to fly to Maine to go on your moose hunt, most likely you're going to want to fly into Bangor. You're definitely going to want to fly into Bangor if you're in the northern parts of the state. If you're in the more of the Rangeley Lakes region, Portland Airport becomes an option. And depending on how much you really wanted to drive, Boston could also be an option. But you're looking at adding 2 hours to your drive compared to if you flew into Portland. and probably closer to 4.5 hours on your drive compared to if you flew into Bangor. So what did we learn today? We learned about the WMDs, the certain zones. Generally north is better because of the season, the cooler temperatures. We talked about the hunting seasons and when those 4 different weeks, when they are, whether it's antler or antlerless or bull or cow, or some rarer cases, any moose. We talked about your sub and alternate permittees and what's that mean, and I showed you some ways to research moose harvest numbers. Didn't really talk about guides all that much, other than you're just going to want one, and the price is going to fluctuate quite a bit depending on whether you're going for a bull or a cow. But a good place to find out more about guides is around the drawing time. They'll be advertising a lot more, and if they do the moose drawing live, I'm sure there'll be ways on social media and stuff to figure out some guides. If you are interested, I do know just a couple guides that I'd recommend. There's tons of good ones. I'm just saying I just only know 2 more or less. And it also depending on where you want to hunt. Didn't also talk about the sort of living situation or camping situation, whatever you want to call it. That's going to probably depend a bit on your guide. Some guides have their own camps. Some set up like a temporary camp, tents, what have you. So that's going to vary a lot as well. And yeah, ways to research moose harvest numbers. So if you thought this was helpful, like, subscribe. Thanks. Hope you learned something. I'm no expert. This is just what I know from going through the process a couple times and what I think is important to know. Thank you for tuning in to 21 Hunting and Fishing, a 100% veteran-owned hunting and fishing show. See ya.